Margaret Howell is outside a school in the north of the capital with more for us.
Things have definitely calmed down from earlier this morning, where a 10th grade boy walked inside earlier at around 11 o'clock this morning.
Good evening to you, Margaret.
Well, there are two possible scenarios at play here. As I mentioned before, that ethnic ghetto situation where these migrants flooding into cities, they want to keep that from happening. That's one possibility. Another possibility, another good reason for the state to mandate where foreign workers, where these foreign people coming in wanting to buy property, they can mandate where they buy. So if you have a very unattractive rural area, you can dictate that that foreigner must buy in that area. Are you asking me if I think he's right? No, he's not right. I mean, we should be investing in our students, not our banks. That is the bottom line. An educated workforce is the crux of society. And he's using that term, student bubble. I mean, he's probably coined that from housing bubble. We're not talking about houses here. We're talking about people. And I think that his argument that we have, too many educated people for a society to function just doesn't fly with me.
Margaret Howell reports from a city in mourning.
It is tense. It's also very somber. Traffic seems to be moving more slowly. I was able to catch up with some of the family members of people who have died, namely the father of the security guard, who's one of two people who will be having a funeral today. And here is their story. Unfortunately, the alleged assault that happened on Muhammad Salim is nothing new. Now, the Department of Justice reported in 2011 that over 250,000 hate crimes happened, many of which went non-reported. Now, many of these crimes happen when the door shuts and the outside world isn't watching. Now, no doubt any of the people of the southern Russian city expected to have two suicide bombers factored into their New Year's Eve celebration, shopping, and travel plans. Volgograd is still reeling after two terror attacks within the span of 24 hours. We met Vitaly in his home just hours after his friend was killed.
Belgium's recent decision to legalise euthanasia for terminally ill children has stoked fierce opposition across Europe. RT's Margaret Howell reports.
First the Netherlands and now Belgium, two countries where the killing of children can now be justified in law. In Belgium, doctor-assisted suicide is now available to anyone of any age. Although even for many parents who've seen their loved ones waste away in pain, the mere idea is just too much to contemplate. Bolivian President Evo Morales said that he's weighing the possibility of closing the U.S. Embassy in Bolivia after his plane was grounded earlier this week upon suspicion that NSA leaker Edward Snowden was on board. Take a listen. We're told here in the U.S. that the Food and Drug Administration has our back, right? Well, with all the information coming out that they're allowing these substances in our food supply, it just may be time to get another option. In Washington, Margaret Howell, RT. Well, good evening, Medina. So this poll specifically was in relation to Crimea. It was conducted by the All-Russian Public Opinion Research Center, and an overwhelming 60% of people polled, they said that people should have the inherent right to speak out both in public and on the internet and not be persecuted or prosecuted for giving their opinion regarding Russia's actions with Crimea. Now, this is very interesting because yesterday in Putin's public address to the nation, it was live, they actually had a member of the audience ask him about civil liberties. Well, in a month filled with breaking news, MSNBC's ratings continued their nosedive. The May ratings were the lowest the network had seen in 4 years. Professor Chambers, I don't know if we'll ever get tired of Don Draper. We are out of time.
Well,
Thank you very much for that. That was Georgetown University journalism professor Christopher Chambers. Why are we seeing these major differences in the federal tax rate of 35% and the effective rate for most corporations? This explosion rather happened just meters past the bus stop, so right in front of a market during a very busy morning, people still going to work. It is a Monday morning here despite the holiday season, and also a medical plane from Moscow is coming to help those who have been injured in the blast this morning. Finally tonight, some sad news from the world of journalism. Award-winning reporter Michael Hastings has passed away.
Why were these guys walking the streets? You know, their departments knew that they had 5 disciplinary type court actions against them between the 2 of them. They shoot this kid 7 times. One of them hits him in the head. These guys have a documented history of violence against citizens, yet they were armed walking the streets, which I find appalling. You know, and we're seeing that more often than not. You know, cops with these extenuous disciplinary behavioral issues are actually the ones caught up in these violent actions. It's unbelievable.
It really is. And I know that you've been following this case specifically, but you've also been kind of looking into police brutality. And some of your own investigative reporting this year has found, so far this year alone, 7 different cases where we know of police brutality resulting in injury or even death. Can you break down some of these stories that you saw?
Sure. Serious bodily injury or death. Isn't that remarkable? And the 7 that I found were just 7 that had enough publicity attached to them to actually gain recognition. Can you imagine all the cases that don't, that are actually covered up?